When I was in high school, I loved camping. My dad bought me a tent, a gas lantern, and a sleeping bag. During the summer, my friends and I liked to head out to different nature reserves and forest areas. We would pick a nice spot, set up the tent, build a fire, then sit back and watch the stars. About a week before graduation, the three of us decided to have one last camping adventure before we all went off to college. We loaded the camping supplies into the back of my friend's car and set off for a remote spot in the forest where we would spend the weekend. By the time we started walking down the trail, it was raining pretty hard and we were all soaked. The trail was very overgrown and extremely muddy. On the way, one of my friends slipped in the mud and broke the gas lamp. That meant we had to make do with only one flashlight. It was almost dark when we arrived at a clearing in the forest and began set up our tent. There was a pair of old black boots lying in the center of the clearing. One of my friends picked them up and flung them into the trees. It was still raining too hard to make a fire, so we got into the tent and started telling each other scary stories in the dark. It was about midnight when we first heard the footsteps. The sound caught us off guard. There wasn't supposed to be anybody else for miles. We were alone in the wilderness, and suddenly, the silence of the night was broken by eerie, hollow footsteps that seemed to be coming straight towards our tent. My stomach turned. I tried to tell myself it was just the rain. The three of us just huddled in the tent, staring at each other in the darkness, eyes wide with fright. We knew it wasn't the rain. Then we heard laughing. It sounded like a high-pitched chuckle. My friend pulled out his pocket knife and held it tightly in his hand. We heard the crack of a branch, as if someone or something had stepped on it. The footsteps got heavier as they got closer to the tent, and soon we heard heavy breathing outside. We were all scared. There was an odd scratching sound. The thing outside was lightly dragging its fingertips across the canvas material of the tent. We all froze and listened. The breathing became a horrible rasping, almost wheezing. My friend yelled out, "Whoever you are, you better get out of here. We have a gun and we're not afraid to use it." We both looked at him. We didn't have a gun. From outside, there came another high-pitched cackle. Before we could so much as move a muscle, we heard a zipper going down. We watched in horror as the zip on the front of the tent began to move slowly down. Someone or something was opening it from outside. My friend raised his knife. Quick as a flash, he thrust it out through the opening in the tent and rammed it down into the dark. The chuckling suddenly stopped. We remained quiet for a few seconds and listened. The rain had stopped and it was deathly silent outside. Taking a deep breath, I grabbed the flashlight and turned it on. Pulling back the flaps of the tent, I shone the light outside. There was a pair of old boots sitting right in front of the tent opening. My friend's knife was stuck right through the toe of the left boot. Whoever or whatever had been wearing those old boots only seconds before had completely vanished into the night. My high school teacher told us a scary story that he claimed was true. He said it happened to a good friend of his that was living in rural Arkansas. One day, the guy was shopping in the supermarket when he happened to bump into a girl in the checkout line. They started talking and seemed to really hit it off. The girl was very pretty and she had a nice personality. She also seemed to be a religious girl, which was exactly the type of girl the guy was looking for. They exchanged numbers and a few days later, the guy called her. They began to call her every evening and they would have long conversations that lasted deep into the night. She seemed to be the perfect girl and the guy started falling head over heels in love with her. The only strange thing was that she ended every phone conversation with a prayer. Eventually, they decided out on a date. The girl called him and told him to come to her house to pick her up on Saturday night. She told him that he had to come at exactly 7:30 p.m. and not a minute later. She said that if he was even a minute late, she would break up with him and he would never see her again. The guy was a little shocked by this, but he really liked the girl, so he agreed to be there at 7:30 sharp. However, the guy coached Little League Baseball on Saturdays, and on that particular Saturday, he had a big game. He couldn't get anyone to substitute for him. The game was supposed to end at 7 p.m., and the girl didn't live far away, so if he hurried, he would be there in plenty of time. When Saturday arrived, the guy coached the baseball game, but it lasted longer than expected. The guy was getting a little nervous, but he still figured he had plenty of time. When the game ended, he took a quick shower and changed his clothes. He was just about to leave when disaster struck. He found out that 3 of the kids' parents hadn't arrived to pick them up. He was going to have to drop the kids home. Nobody else could do it. The guy flew into a panic. He really didn't want to miss his date with the nice girl. He told the kids to hop into his car, and he drove off as fast as he could. After quickly dropping off the first 2 kids, he decided that the 3rd kid's house was too far away, so he left the kid on the road and begged him to walk home on his own. The guy felt really guilty about it, but he was desperate to get to the girl's house. When he finally arrived at her house, it was almost 8 p.m. He knocked on the front door, and a 40-year-old woman answered it. She said she was the girl's mother. She told him the girl was angry that he was late and didn't want to see him. The woman ordered him to go away and leave them alone. The guy tried to apologize and reason with her, but the woman just slammed the door in his face. The guy's heart sank. He went home sad and dejected. A few days later, he was watching the local news when he saw a story about some missing children. A picture of a house flashed up on the TV screen, and it looked familiar. He realized it was the girl's house. Just then, there was a knock on the door. When he answered it, he found 2 policemen standing on his doorstep. They asked him if he knew the girl, and when he said he did, they told him they wanted to come inside and ask him some questions. The police informed him they had arrested the girl he had been trying to date. They also arrested the 40-year-old woman who lived with her. The woman was not her mother. The policeman said that the woman and the girl were members of some sort of satanic cult. They were engaging in human sacrifice. When they searched their house, the cops found remains of a number of missing children. There was blood all over the walls and body parts stuffed in the refrigerator. In the basement, they found the creepiest thing of all. It was a jar of hearts labeled with the names of the missing kids. There was also an empty jar beside it. The empty jar also had a label on it. The police told the guy that his name was written on it. It turned out that the girl had invited him out on a date because she wanted to lure him to her house. She insisted that he had to get there at 7:30 p.m. because they were going to kill him in a ritual human sacrifice. The ritual apparently had to be executed at a precise timing. The fact that he turned up late was what saved him from being murdered.